Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are at episode 4, season 2 of Workforce at Work. I am Shamar Heron, Executive Director at Michigan Work Southeast, and I am so excited to be with you today. We have a very, very special guest covering a topic that some of you may know about and others may be interested in. And so we're going to clear up and talk about all things career and technical education, or as some of you may know it as CTE. We might talk about a couple other historical terms, but Mr. Kevin Oxley, the superintendent of the Jackson Intermediate School District, is here to talk to us today. Kevin, how are you doing today?
Hello, Shamar. Thanks for having me on this beautiful afternoon.
Beautiful afternoon.
Sunshine.
That's what we need right about now in the dog days of winter. But we can't tell with that beautiful sunshine in your background. So Kevin, thanks for joining us.
You bet. You bet.
Awesome. Awesome. So Kevin, maybe we can get started with some of the light work. Like, tell us who you are and a little bit about your role.
Well, I'm the superintendent of the Jackson County Intermediate School District, and we're an educational service district to the 12 public school districts, charter districts, and parochial school districts in Jackson County. And our lines go a little bit into our neighboring counties as well. But we provide a variety of services, and very importantly, is career and technical education for the students of Jackson County.
All right. And so let's morph that together. Being a superintendent of an ISD and the work that you do around CTE, or again, career and technical education, can you help our audience understand what exactly is CTE, or career and technical education?
Yeah, absolutely. It is very specific programming for skilled trades, for other types of programs that require certifications that students can earn, and various standards that have to be taught in the classes. And every county in the state ends up doing it different. In Jackson County, we're blessed. We have a countywide career and technical education millage that was passed in perpetuity way back in the 1970s. I'm going to say 1974, 1975. And that generates dollars so we can have really premier programming in over 20 different programs at the Jackson Area Career Center. And so the schools in the county send students to us for a half day, and we educate them, but the schools count them as a full FTE, even though we have them for half a day. And that's a really nice financial setup for Jackson County. It really encourages schools to help kids who have an aptitude for one of our programs to come out here and get that education for half a day. And, we're really blessed. Other counties don't do it that way. Other counties have maybe a couple of programs in one school district and a couple of programs in another, and then they bus kids around. And sometimes those schools have to exchange money as kids go from school to school. We just don't have to do that because, voters back in the mid 70s set it up so we didn't have to. And we're also very blessed in that we have really the capability to have state-of-the-art programs and state-of-the-art equipment on hand. So when the kids are taking a welding class, they're working on the latest and greatest welding equipment. When they're in a machining class, it's the latest and greatest machines, so that it's industry specific and up to date for the 21st century.
It's amazing when you talk about in perpetuity, right? So in 1974, whoever the leadership was had the foresight to say, let's not fool around with this coming back every 2-4 years. Let's get something set up where we can really stabilize an educational opportunity for a school district. So my hat's off to whomever those leaders were before I was even thought of. I appreciate that work. Let me ask you, is CTE similar to what we would have called in the 90s in the Detroit public school system voc tech or vocational training, or is this a little different?
It's probably that souped up. Because there are very specific industry standards that the programs have to meet. I think probably the programs that you and I took when we were in high school or younger they were vocational in a sense, but they didn't necessarily meet a certain standard. They weren't always programs that had up-to-date industry equipment. They didn't have, they may have had some job placement opportunities, but a lot of times you just worked in a store or something, as opposed to when we put someone out on a job placement now, they're actually on the floor doing the work in a little different capacity. So there's similarities, but I would say it's, a little more advanced with a little bit more rigor in this day and age.
Especially if there are certifications and credentials involved, that includes some sort of testing that has to go into that to sort of verify that you are able and capable of achieving what, your coursework that you've taken predicated you to be able to do. So those credentials and certifications also equip you with the ability to enter the workforce a little more advanced than, let's say, your counterpart who didn't take those courses.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the latter is the big thing, right? I mean, you come out with, if you're in our auto mechanic program, you come out with certifications in brakes and, a variety of different things. And you go to a shop and you say, listen, I'm licensed. I'm ready to go to work and not necessarily just, sweeping the shop floor. I'm ready to do the work that you do inside this organization. So, like I said, kind of a little bit beyond what the old VOTEC was.
So I'm going to go a little bit off script, might do it once or twice more, but I like to keep folks on their toes. Hey, Kevin, can you give us a couple of examples of the types of programming? So you mentioned the auto shop, right? What are some of the other programs and areas for certification that you offer at your space? So
staying in the automotive industry, we also offer auto body. And then you go through manufacturing, and we have precision machining, we have welding, we have engineering, so design, test, build. You can kind of see all phases of a manufacturing process. We have agricultural programs and a pretty large farm out behind here.
It's impressive. I've visited your space several times, and the ag space is one of my favorites.
Yeah, and so it's both animal and plant. So we have a huge plant sale every year. We sell the cows and the pigs every year, and those kids, that's tremendous ownership by those kids in those programs. We have a lot of computer-based programs, around gaming design, around fixing computers or troubleshooting computers. We have construction programs, including on-site here, where you learn the basics, but then we also build a house, a site house. And it takes us 3 to 4 years to build a complete house, but then that's sold, and the money that it's sold for goes back into the program. And those homes are usually in the $300,000 range. So
Wow.
these are big homes that are sold.
Wow.
We have a ton of health programs from SENA to other areas of health and nursing. We have a culinary program. I'm just kind of walking around the Career Center in my mind right now. We have graphic arts and computer design. We have a dental hygiene program. We have cosmetology.
Wow.
The teacher education program. I probably skipped something in one of the hallways as I'm trying to walk through it here, but police and fire safety, so public safety programs, as well as junior ROTC program. So Boy, I apologize to anybody who's listening to this to a program I missed, but as you can tell, we have a lot of programs and we're really blessed to be able to offer that variety.
Robust over at the Jackson Career Center. And, I in particular am such a fan of our educators because of the work that they do, but the pressures that they face. The preparation of the future workforce starts in those classrooms. And so while a lot of the work that I do is focused on individuals stepping into employment opportunities, perseverance, hard work, attention to detail starts in those classrooms when they're very young, and it just matriculates on through to what you're doing at the Career Center into an employment opportunity. So to all of our educators out there, I want to say a great big thank you for your work. Thank you, Kevin, for leading this information, this tremendous program that's based in Jackson County. If you're just joining us here at Workforce at Work, thank you. I'm Shamar Heron, Executive Director of Michigan Work Southeast. And today we are joined with Kevin Oxley, Superintendent of the Jackson Intermediate School District. We're talking all things career and technical education, as this month is Career and Technical Education Month. So CTE month here in the state of Michigan. We're so excited. Kevin was just updating us on some of the programming that is at the Career Center in Jackson. And so, Kevin, you listed off, 20 different areas of interest for a young person to get involved in and really learn and become certified and credentialed in. Who's normally instructing these students? Where do you get the instructors to teach our future workforce?
That's what makes CTE instructors unique is they're teacher certified, but they also have recent relevant work experience in the field that they're teaching. And so, you mentioned, just being prepared for the workforce. They bring with them actual experience having worked in the workforce. And so when we talk about employment skills or those soft skills, that are so necessary for any employee to have, they know what it is because they've lived it, they've done it. Those are the people who teach our programs. And even our instructional assistants have at least 4,000 hours of recent relevant work experience in the program that they're teaching. So it's very authentic in that sense.
And when you talk about authenticity, and we're preparing young people for a lot of times what they learn is theoretical, right? They are learning it out of a textbook, but what you're doing at the Career Center and what CTE does in whole is put your hands on the tools that you use. Put your eyes on the systems that you'll need to keep an eye on, ensuring that you understand how to troubleshoot. And so those skills, to me, and in my opinion, are, again, essential because you have to troubleshoot, you have to think critically, you have to be able to communicate when you are finding an issue or when you are working through issues with teammates. So this is going from theoretical to practical and hands-on. And to me, that's some of the best education you can get. Our physics teacher in high school, our first assignment is we had to write out how to stand up and walk.
Interesting. Yeah.
Right? And so most of us said, you just stand up, you unflex your knees. And he said, no. I need to know about what tendons you need to engage. You need to talk about, what it means to have inertia to swing your arms forward and keep that momentum going. And so it really forced us to get in the groups and talk through, he's doing this and she's doing that. And you all are doing that on an everyday basis. So I'm so thankful that the young people of Jackson and several of our other counties get that hands-on, practical, real-world experience that allows them to head into the workforce and be prepared.
I'll give you an example of that physics lesson in action at the Career Center. We have a robotics program. And it sounded like you were describing this robot starting up and moving down the road. And These kids build it, they compete with them. And it's just that real relevant action-oriented, in-context learning that's so valuable in career and technical education.
And to me, the critical thinking that often gets overlooked in route learning, right? You sit down, you read chapters 2 and 3, and then you regurgitate it via a test. When you have to go out there and make sure someone's tire doesn't fly off of their vehicle, or make sure, if you're a phlebotomist, you're that needle is touching in the right place. That's a little bit different of a set of pressures than having to just, regurgitate what you learned on a piece of paper. And I think it creates a more complete individual because you're thinking about the larger impacts of what you're doing. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And I'll tell you the other thing you'll notice, you walk into any of those classrooms, they work in teams because they work on problems and they don't work in a vacuum on the problem, right? I mean, if you're in the engineering class, there's a team of people trying to engineer something, and it's not just one person, it's the whole group. And that's real world, right? I mean, that's how it happens in the real world. You don't work in a vacuum, you work in teams and you problem solve together. And it's just an action-oriented building. Very cool.
And you talk about upstream versus downstream. What I do may affect upstream or downstream. So my lack of focus could cause the next group a big issue, or the previous groups can cause my group's lack of attention to detail some issues. So I just love the approach overall. And I'm so excited that, again, back in 1974, some forward-thinking leaders said, let's get this funded in a way where we don't have to worry about funding year over year or every 2, 4, 6 years. We got to worry about how we're going to keep this thing funded. And it gives the young people the opportunity to say, oh, my big brother went through such and such, and he told me about this. Or my sister told me, hey, the best, dental hygiene program in the county is right within our school district. So just so proud of the forward-thinking leadership of 72 and 73, but also you, Kevin, you've innovated this work, you've pushed it forward. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you see success as versus how you're measured in terms of success, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I think the measure of success is exposure to all of these different opportunities to as many students as possible. For me, it doesn't mean because you come to the Career Center that you've just locked yourself into a 50-year career, right? But what you've done is you've fed an aptitude, you've fed an interest. And, we have a lot of kids who might go through a program and they might not end up going into that for a career, but it was all the stuff they learned in that program that helped them in whatever they decided to do later in life. And, you were just talking about, well, I might be the one who, would throw a group off. You know what? Everybody's different. You will work in teams. People will bring different things to the table, and you can't let it stop you. You got to problem yourself your way through it. And that's what the Career Center does for kids. And you've mentioned several times the leaders. I cannot take credit for that at all. I was not around in 1975. But, we were so blessed in Jackson County to have and I think it's fair for me looking at the history to say a group of manufacturers that said, this is important for the students of Jackson County and our future labor force. And they really led that effort and that campaign to make it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Shout out to the pioneers, right? Those folks who are able to see the future before it's here and act accordingly, right? There's one thing to say, hey, we need to do something, but then to be able to manufacture something that has impact almost 50 years later and beyond, right? This thing is going to precede both of us and continue to help Jackson County effectively build its own workforce, which is pretty hard to do.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were just blessed in Jackson County. You had founding fathers and great gentlemen and leaders like Al Glick, who just passed away.
Yes.
Without that kind of leadership, and that kind of foresight, the kids of today don't have the opportunities they have. And so sometimes it's the right people in the right places coming together with others to make that kind of stuff happen.
Yeah. Al Glick over at Alro Steel, just a real, not only pioneer, but a manufacturer of opportunity for an entire community. So rest in peace, Mr. Glick. We hope the best for that family. We understand the impact that'll have on the community. But our thoughts and condolences go out to all. I talk to my friends, family, and loved ones about continuums all the time. You start somewhere and then you move through this continuum. And so as we've talked about how these programs were funded in the past, we talk about what's currently available. What do you see as the next, let's say, evolution of CTE? Where do you see career and technical education headed? So you started to talk about a couple areas that I think have room for growth into this new world of Industry 4.0 and the Internet of Things. But as the superintendent currently here in 2022, what do you see as the next evolution of career and technical education?
Shamar, you probably just brought up what I would be thinking, and that's a smoother continuum, where there's very defined pathways that kids can be plugged into that lead them from one step to another. And I think we're getting better at that. But, and that's through partnerships, right? I mean, we have strong partnerships with Jackson College and other institutions of higher education in the state. What is that connection to business and industry, like an Elro Steel or industrial steel treating, or how about the hospital with our health programs? And all of those things are there. But I think the next iteration is to really make that transition through smooth and easy to understand for kids and parents, so they get on track, they get excited about the track they're on, and they see where they're going. And I think, sometimes that can stifle young people when they just can't see where they're going. Yeah. I think we're doing a better job in career and technical education of saying, here's a very clear, easy to understand path that you will go on, and this is what's at the end of that line, and it's a good thing. And I think if you can show kids what's at the end of the line and show them how that can really improve their life and give them a meaningful, purposeful career, they're going to be engaged all the way through.
Yeah, absolutely. The engagement, the clarity, alignment of thoughts, making sure that parents understand why their children are headed down the road that they are. And just because it wasn't around in 1990 or 83 doesn't mean it's not relevant right now. And just because it's relevant right now doesn't mean it'll still be applicable, in 2030 and 2045. I used to laugh when I was younger. 2020, that's, cars will be flying and it'll really be like the Jetsons. But what we learn is technology has progressed tremendously, but in ways we would have never imagined. I would have never imagined I have to force myself to put time limits on how long I can be on my cell phone.
Yeah.
I would have never imagined I can say we're going to Nashville, Tennessee, not have to reach out to AAA for any quick maps,
right?
Pull it up on that said cell phone and it'll get me right to the door of my hotel. Right. So all of these technologies are starting to really get robust, and we have to start to open our minds up to the fact that the continuum continues, and it is something that is ever evolving. And just because you can't see it doesn't mean it won't exist at a certain point. I read a statistic that said 60% of the positions that will be available in 2035 do not exist at this moment.
Yeah, what is the next program that's coming down the line? Because there's something you and I can't visualize right now that's right around the corner.
Yep.
And the other thing is partnerships like we have with Michigan Works Southeast. Really helping that continuum move forward for and what I envision are on-ramps that are easy to find, and you can plug in and be on the continuum. And I think we're getting better at that. But there's always work to do, always work to do.
Absolutely. And like you said, let's try not to discredit or discard something because it's not right in front of our face, but keep our eye on the prize, which is growth, which is evolution, but which is also making things palatable, right? Our young people have to be able to see themselves doing it. They have to be able to understand how they get there, and they want to be able to explain. Most of us, I always tell my wife, you want to get somebody talking, ask them about what they do.
Yeah.
Most people love to talk about what they do for a living, what they aspire to do, because normally it's a passion of theirs. So we get our next generation of leaders excited about a variety of areas because it's not linear, right? You don't just step in as an engineer one, and next thing you know, you've created the new age rocket ship. No, it's you bounce over here. I love what you said about engineering: design, test, build, right? And that is in so many facets besides engineering. You just about every area that you mentioned, there's that building up to get to a final point. And then there's an evaluative period as well.
Absolutely.
Similar to what you have to do with your educators. Are you educating to the students of today?
Yep.
So Kevin, I got one, maybe two more questions for you. All right.
Sure.
All right. So here's what I want to know. And this is, it is a collaborative approach because I have several organizations that ask me, about CTE. Do you have any advice for organizations or different school districts? Because I can name several that are considering this. Do you have any advice for those school districts who don't have CTE programming? Maybe 1 to 3 steps, 1 to 3 tidbits that they could follow to get them to a point where they have something successful?
I would say the first thing is engage your community. And you know this, working where you do, there's not an employer out there that isn't trying to fill positions, right? And the problem is both immediate and it's ongoing. Career and tech ed programs can be the ongoing solution, that feed future openings. Engage your community because they want to engage with you. They've got a challenge and a problem that you can help solve. That's number one. Number two, engage parents in the quicker you can bring purpose to education for a student, the more the hook's going to get, hot right in their cheek, and they're going to move forward. We all want to have purpose in our life. Career and technical education does that in spades. I mean, it really comes out and brings purpose to young educators. So, those are just two things off the top of my head. You will have parents and kids passionate about education. If you give them programming that they're interested in, you will have a community behind you trying to figure out how to help you build those programs because it helps them and it helps the whole community, and it's long-term help. It's not short-term help.
Yeah. I'd throw a third one in there, Kevin, and say educate your elected officials so that they understand why you are putting that information out there, how they can help, what the benefits are for their constituents. And so educating your elected officials, both locally, state, and federally, so that you have the right allies talking to the right people to make sure that the voters get the understanding and knowledge that they need to make the right vote. So if you don't mind, I'd add educating your elected officials.
So that is a great point. And our elected officials have a lot of connections to our career center. Our current officials, they come from industries that we have programs in. They're big supporters, and you bet we want to continue that because they can help through policy and funding make these programs happen.
Awesome. So one more question for you, Kevin Oxley, Superintendent of the Jackson Intermediate School District during Career and Technical Education Month. Thank you for joining me, Kevin. Do you have any parting words for those who are watching and listening? What knowledge can you impart on people as we sort of wrap up this conversation? What would you like to share?
I would just share, encourage your young ones to explore. If they have an aptitude, there's probably some programming that'll feed that aptitude. And I think a lot of times, if it just doesn't fit into, traditional English or math or something, you don't see it. It probably involves all those very important subjects. There's a specific interest out there with a program that you'll just take off and you'll realize I love to weld. And holy cow, there's a lot of math in this. But math will be fun because you're welding now and you're doing something you like. So, please explore those things. I would also just say, if you go to the www.jcisd.org, you'll see under the Career Center tab, we have a virtual tour of the Jackson Area Career Center, and you can click in it and it walks you through the Career Center, and there's tons of information for young people to see. What might we be able to feed you that you'll like? We'd love to have you.
Especially with that awesome culinary program over there, maybe a couple sweet treats, right? Hey, Kevin, I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much for joining us. Give us that website again where people can go and take a virtual tour.
It's www.jcisd.org and go to the Career Center section.
Awesome. Kevin, thank you so much for your time, the insight around career and technical education. Happy CTE month. Yeah. We appreciate all the work you and your colleagues are doing over there and across the entire school district. Take care of yourself. Go out and enjoy some of that sunshine today.
I will do that. Thank you so much for the opportunity. I always enjoy talking with you, Shamar.
All right, same here. You've joined us at Workforce at Work. I am Shamar Heron, Executive Director of Michigan Work Southeast. Thank you, and we will see you at the next episode.